Welcome to a bite-sized episode of the After Dinner Leadership Podcast. I want to spend this time today really focused in on the year 2024 and reviewing some of the lessons learned associated with leadership throughout this year. It's worth calling out an immense sense of gratitude for all of the guests that we've had this year. Thankful for their time and their wisdom that they've brought to our conversations. I've learned so much from them. Really grateful for them being generous. Also, a quick call out to my colleagues Chloe and Ryan, who have produced and edited the podcasts. They're the ones that work behind the scenes to schedule our guests and to make this happen and to get the posts out for you to consume it. So thank you to both of you for your hard work throughout the year in that. I feel really grateful for the opportunity. We've had 25 episodes this year, and I expect next year we'll have a few more. And really looking forward to our guests that we've got already lined up in 2025. So I want to talk about 3 leadership lessons that I've observed through my own leadership and also working with leaders across the world. I've had the real benefit to work in 12 different countries this year and to see leaders operate in lots of different organizational cultures. And 3 areas that I want to talk about today: a little bit about self-care, second is around honest conversations, and the third is to look at the word proximity, which was my word of the year. So I want to just spend a few minutes on each of those. In all of this, I'd love you to consider for yourself, what are the lessons that you have learned this year? What are the leadership lessons that you've learned this year that are embedded, that are really going to benefit you, that you can take into 2025? So let's take a look at this first one, this idea of self-care. The quote, "You can't draw water from an empty well," comes to mind. And in my own experiences, particularly early summer or late spring this year, really was stretched and recognizing that the well was starting to run a bit dry. So I had to take some action to ensure that that didn't repeat itself. And whilst it's been intense closeout of the year, I certainly feel a very different mental space than I did at the end of June when I was about to go on holiday and needing that holiday. I also, in my coaching practice, have seen that play out with some of the leaders that I work with across the world as well. Some are managing that workload and that stretch really well and sustainably, others less so. But these stretch points also provide opportunities for us to really recalibrate and to think about how we're engaging with our team in the most effective way. And certainly I found that for myself. So for our business, amazing growth, really interesting projects, and a great opportunity to expand the remit and roles of the team and refocus where I put my energy. But it's also been, I guess the key thing I want to land here is the important, maybe small things that we can do that can actually make a big difference into filling our well. So actually it's something that we can draw from. And then there are several things that I've noticed this year. I just want to pick out a few of those that I think are helpful. The first one, very fundamental, is about walking and talking versus sitting and scrolling, and the difference that makes in terms of my energy filling up when I go for a walk, typically with my wife, and we kind of catch up ourselves, but also it's a great opportunity for me to verbalize some of the things that are going on that I might be finding a little bit stretching. And being able to talk those through in a very non-judgmental manner with my wife are massively helpful. As long as working with a coach, I find that really powerful. But also these just simple walking and talking, and I find that with my team as well, walking and talking on our one-to-ones are really inspiring conversations for me. Another part is picking up journaling in a more active way. An old client of mine, David Buxton, introduced me to a book called Some Lines a Day, which is just a really nicely laid out book to be able to record some writings every day over a 5-year period. And I'm really enjoying that. Just downloading just a short paragraph every day has been really helpful in working through some of my own thoughts and thinking about the learnings that I'm having on a daily basis. And then the last part is recognizing the power of team sport. I've engaged in working with a volleyball team and being part of a volleyball team and reconnecting with that. I play with my son and my daughter, and that has been a really, really great physical and mental recharge, which I've found to be very, very fun, but also great for my energy, expending energy whilst also recharging it. So key lesson for me going into 2025 is just maintaining this self-care so that we can sustain effective leadership is really key. Question for you: what will you do? What will you continue to do to be able to sustain effective leadership energy going into this year? Okay, let's move on to the second point. Second area is the importance of honest conversations. And again, much of my coaching work is helping leaders. That's often the topic they'll bring. I've got a challenging conversation with a team member. I've got a difficult conversation I need to have with my director. I've got difficult conversations with clients. And so I really spend quite a lot of time in this space with my clients, but also for myself, thinking about how can I improve this candor and clarity associated with having honest conversations. And one observation was actually in my own role as a coachee, so receiving coaching. I have a great deal of respect for my coach, and one of the things that I noticed, it'd be very easy for me to put up a facade to speak about the things I think he would like to hear and project that. I worked really hard to just kind of bare my soul, to really open up. And I found that to be far more valuable than me trying to pretend that things are better than they are or worse than they are. Like what is actually happening, and being able to speak very truthfully about how I feel has been massive. And the coaching's been really beneficial for me as a leader this year. But also working within leadership teams, I have an opportunity to see different styles at play. More caustic approaches, and those that are really effective. One team that have been working really hard over the last few years to be really disciplined in helping their leadership team really be at the top of its game. Had a lovely experience in the last few months, seeing them map out a different structural framework for how they would operate. And it could have easily have been a land-grabbing exercise and taking passive-aggressive shots at each other within that environment. But the work they've done, the way in which they've built that trust with each other meant that it wasn't that. It was really constructive, challenging, constructive, creative debate that's come up with a set of really good solutions. And I love that honesty they're able to have in the room as a consequence of really being disciplined and putting frameworks down that help them to engage in that way. So I think one of the lessons for me is recognizing this idea of the Greek word kairos, the right time and place, and creating that, not just waiting for it, right? Creating the right time and place in a proactive way. And I love one of the messages from Greg McKeown, who came on the podcast as a guest. One of his lessons was argue sooner. Now, whether I agree with the word argue, but the sentiment is what I do agree with. It's like deal with challenging conversations earlier than you think you might need to, and kind of lean into the discomfort of that with whoever it is that you're speaking to. It makes a massive difference. You're typically then dealing with something much smaller than it will be in 2 hours, 2 weeks, 2 months. Leaning into that, as hard as it is, as awkward as it might be at times, usually pays massive dividends to being able to deal with what's really going on rather than a huge amount of assumptions, and some of those will be false. So really getting to what's at the heart of the matter makes a big difference. And I've seen that to be really powerful this year. The third area is around proximity. Now, proximity was my word of the year for 2024. You may recall that a good friend of mine, Johnny Limpus, he inspired me to do this a few years ago when we were working together. I met up with him actually about 3 or 4 weeks ago and just connected again and talking about our words of the year. It was a great experience. And I'm pleased with this idea of proximity. Was about building closer relationships, getting closer to people that I'd highlighted. I'm not going to share all of that. It's too personal. But at a high level, I'm really pleased that progress has been made in there. And there's some relationships I'm still working hard on to have that level of proximity that I think would be even more effective, more powerful for our relationship. One particular success story, I guess, an ongoing success story, 32 years married this year. And my relationship with my wife continues to bring a huge amount of joy to me. And that is a massive blessing to my whole self, whether that's at work or with family, just by myself. She continues to be the light of my life. Coaching question associated with proximity. Who is it that really comes to mind that would benefit from more of you? Give that some thought. Okay, let's look at 2025. As I look out from a podcast perspective, we'll cross the 100 episode barrier or landmark achievement, whatever you want to call it, in 2025. I'm excited by that we've had 4 years of really good conversations. I feel they're getting better. I'm working really hard to listen and craft more deeply the conversations that we arrange, and I'm excited to see where that will take me and take us in 2025, because there's so much really powerful wisdom out there that I want to kind of access and draw upon. I'm really excited by those who are already signed up to meet with me over the coming months. And then word of the year for 2025. It's interesting how these sometimes come out of different places. This one came as I was reading scripture. This word astonish was a word that spoke to me. And I thought, oh, that's a really interesting word. It's not a word that's used a huge amount in conversations today. So that's one of the reasons why I like it. It's slightly extraordinary. And what does it mean? It means to surprise or impress someone greatly. In the context of the way I want to use it, and I won't share everything about why I'm choosing this word, because some of it's me and I don't want it to be a public thing. But the bit I want to share with is astonish with. How do you astonish with others? So it's not about being a solo effort, but how do you involve others in that effort of astonishing? Being surprised, being impressed. What I'm using it for is to aggravate or provoke a different level of thinking in terms of the kind of design that we might do for a client, the attitude I could take into a coaching conversation, the expectation I might have of myself to perform at higher levels of excellence to achieve better outcomes for the clients and for me. And that's where it's in that space. It's like, at the end of the year, I want to say, actually, that was an astonishing year. 2025 was astonishing. Look at the amazing things that have been achieved. Look at the growth that's happened, and think about the unexpected outcomes that have come about from sometimes very small and simple things that are being done consistently well, that would generate this astonishing results. So I think it's a cool word. I'm really interested to see where it takes me. My coaching question: what word would capture the essence of where I want to focus in 2025? Write it down, map it out. I have a spider diagram and various themes that come off the back of that impact my my own sort of thought process, my mindset, frame of mind, the way I might interact with my closest loved ones, my family, and also thinking about my team and also the clients that we serve. And the ripple effect of that little word of the year, that focus, is actually quite profound. And I encourage you to give it a go. So thank you for listening. Once again, really appreciate you being a part of these conversations that we have with our guests. And if you have any recommendations that you'd like to put forward of people that inspire you, and they don't have to be publicly known figures particularly, it could be a community leader, someone that you have worked around that you find inspiring, I'd love for you to get in touch and let me know so that we can add them to our list of potential guests. And I wish you the very best of success going into 2025, and that you can reflect on the highs and the lows that you've experienced and the learning that's come from either side, and take that with you also into this year. Thanks again, and I look forward to introducing you to more inspiring guests at the After Dinner Leadership dinner table. Thank you for joining us at the After Dinner Leadership table, and trust that you've got good value from listening to this episode. Thanks for being here. One question for you. The question is, so what? What will you do with what you've just heard? And here's a few suggestions. Number 1, lead with more purpose. 2, mentor with patience. 3, share with pride. You think of anyone who you know that would benefit from listening to what you've just heard, that would help them to be a better leader today or in the future. Please share, like, subscribe. It helps other people to consume the content. And we wish you all the very best of success. And please listen again to another After Dinner Leadership conversation.